Welcome to the 2023 ACG Silicon Valley Grow Awards. I am Yvonne Schwab, CEO of ACGSV. After a 4-year absence, we are thrilled to be hosting this event again in person at this beautiful facility. Huge thank you to Microsoft for having us this evening. Now, I would like to take a few minutes for those not familiar with ACG and the Silicon Valley chapter. At ACG, we provide local connections with a global reach to over 14,000 members. At ACG Silicon Valley, we differ from the other 59 chapters worldwide in that we are a community made up predominantly of CEOs and senior level executives. Because of this distinction, ACG Silicon Valley is able to offer exclusive programming to our executive community. With our monthly panel discussions, which address different thought-provoking topics each time, plus our 9 circles focused on various industries and verticals, we provide an array of networking, thought leadership, and growth opportunities. Which is why we're hosting the Grow Awards. Now this year, we will begin our event a bit differently than in previous years. We will enjoy a fireside chat between 2 well-respected Silicon Valley leaders, followed by a delicious dinner, during which we will present our 3 awards of the evening to 3 worthy partners. Now please, welcome to the stage for this exclusive chat, Mr. Guy Kawasaki. Author, speaker, entrepreneur, and evangelist.
Hello. Thank you.
And Jay Chaudhry, CEO, chairman, and founder of Zscaler. Jay is an accomplished entrepreneur, having founded a series of successful companies, including AirDefense, CipherTrust, CoreHarbor, and Zscaler. Welcome, Jay. Enjoy.
Well, thank you very much for coming. I really enjoy interviewing remarkable people. I have a podcast called that. And so this is a real pleasure and just right up my alley. So, and I like to have fun and ask questions that typically a person would not ask, okay? So just be warned right now. But let's start off with some basics. And just so everybody understands, like, what does your current company do? Let's understand that.
So I'm CEO, founder, and chairman of Zscaler. This is about cloud security. I have been in the security space for a long time, so I've seen that these traditional security solutions, firewalls, VPNs, they just don't work. In the new world of mobility and cloud, applications are everywhere, users are everywhere. You can't be putting firewalls in every place. So we said, let's reimagine the network and security. Let's think outside the box. Let's do the opposite of how security is done today. Security was done by being inside my building, my network. We said, let's build a switchboard, a smart switchboard, where everyone is untrusted. They're out there somewhere. They come and connect to us and say, who are you? Where are you going? Are you allowed to go there? Are you going to get in trouble if you went there? And connect the right user to right application or right services. So customers like Siemens, United Airlines, Shell, DHL, all of their employees, when they go to internet, they go to SaaS applications, they go to Azure, AWS, or application data center. They go through us. So we are a very mission-critical service that enables safe business.
Okay. So I love to watch Netflix series. And basically, every Netflix series that I love involves some kind of tech. And at some point, somebody rushes into the room and says, we're being attacked. there's a breach. Call up our cybersecurity, get the CEO down here or I'm going to fire his ass. So is that how it works in your life? Are you like constantly putting out fires?
That's only in movies. Perhaps I can talk about breaches in two simple buckets.
Okay.
One bucket, they want to steal your intellectual property, especially nation states. I want to figure out the COVID virus. Okay, I want to figure out the jet engine design. In those cases, no one knows anything. They simply come in, they become part, they get on your network, they're really collecting information, figuring out which computer they can get in there, totally silent. They could be sitting there for months and months. And somehow by accident, somewhere they discover some footprints of some kind. And that's how some of these breaches get discovered. Now they start figuring out when did this start, what all got stolen. And so there's some ways to find some of that, but it's not easy. The other kind, which actually you know about it, is ransomware. They get into your network, they find a computer with most important application, like what happened with Colonial Pipeline. They got in the billing application, they encrypt it so it can't be used. If you can't use it, you can't really do any billing, customers online, offline, all this stuff. Then they say, pay me so much. So obviously, they ask for money, and then it's a public news. But all that doesn't happen in the middle of the night. They don't call you at 3 a.m. Okay.
And when someone is threatening, pay me $20 million so you can't operate your business, what's your advice? Pay them?
No, don't. I think first of all, if companies start taking proper steps, they won't get breached.
You mean like hiring you guys?
Yeah, deploying the better new generation of security like Zscaler. It's called zero trust, mean trust no one. And when people keep on buying these firewalls and all this old stuff, 30-year-old technology, the hackers have moved on. Large enterprises often are slow. It's interesting. I had a call with the board of directors of one of the largest banks in India recently, a customer of ours. And this one board member said, Jay, I read so many Fortune 500 companies in the US getting breached. They have all the money. They have all the smarts. How could they get breached?
Yeah.
It's a good question. It took me a few seconds to think through. But the issue is, the bigger the company, the slower moving it is, lots of old technologies. And when you move to new technologies, you have to think outside the box. And that's when real innovation happens. Going from a DVD player to Netflix is totally different thinking. Going from traditional car to electric car is totally different thinking. And that's how technology changes fundamentally every 20, 30 years in architectural change. Security is going through that change, and that's what we are driving. So if you don't let someone in the castle, you bring them in, go to a meeting room, the meeting happens, then you walk them out. That's the new way. The old way is they check all the credentials at the gate, then you're in, you wander around the hallways, you go wherever you need to go. That's the problem with old security. That's why companies are getting hacked. And good thing is, countries waking up, even federal government is waking up. They all talk about zero trust, and it's happening. And I have been evangelizing it for the last dozen plus years. Okay, so it's good to see it's finally waking up.
So, if you look at Fortune 500, like what percentage of those companies do you say, oh my God, these people are so clueless, they're going to get breached?
So the one who know they are clueless are better than the one who don't know they are clueless.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's just like politicians. Yeah.
That's right. But the awareness is coming. It's happening. Things are getting better. But look at a lot of these large companies getting breached. Big hospital chains are getting breached. They just need to wake up.
So, this is a little bit of a digression, but it just occurred to me. So, when you read that politicians and governments are all concerned about TikTok. Do you like look at that and you just laugh and you say, well, they're worried about TikTok, but they have the completely breachable infrastructure, and they're worried about, China is going to figure out what some 16-year-old is doing on TikTok, and that's your biggest concern, Senator?
Yeah, but that's politicians, right? That's politicians talking. But it's true. The infrastructure needs to be made more secure. The good thing is the current administration actually has put in place a lot of plans. They created a new agency called CISA, which is about cyber security, cyber and infrastructure security agency. They're actually helping quite a bit. And they have 16 categories of critical infrastructure, from banking to transportation, logistics, and all this stuff. So they're helping.
So let's say that you're Secretary of Cybersecurity for the U.S. government, right? And Joe Biden calls you up and say, Jay, should I throw out TikTok or not? And you say what?
I think there are a lot more other things you can do to fix before going after TikTok. But TikTok just gets attention.
Okay, okay. Can we back up a little? Can you just tell us your life story, how you got from India to Atherton? I use Atherton in quotes because I don't know where you really live.
Yeah,
and I asked Bard and I asked ChatGPT, and both of them said he's a person, and we're not going to give you where he lives, which is interesting. So I don't know where you live, but just say Atherton in quotes.
So the large language model is not quite complete yet. Okay, they need some more training. Okay. But sometimes I do wonder if my life is real or am I dreaming? Okay. Because I was born in a tiny village in the foothills of the Himalayas in northern India. Okay. We got electricity after I finished my 8th grade. We got running water after I finished my 10th grade.
Wow.
My parents could never go to school because when they were young, the school was about 10 kilometers away. When I went to school, there was only 4 kilometers, so we could walk 4 kilometers. It was not a big deal. I was somehow always fascinated to learn and study. I was a good student. So I got into IIT, some of the best schools in India. From there, lots of students would come to US for masters because it's great engineering program. So I came here by accident, right? Because I just didn't even know IIT existed. Okay. And once I came here, I got into, like a typical engineer, did some software development. And then one day, this small software company I worked for, their system engineer didn't show up for work. And there was a demo lined up for a customer. They said, Jay, why don't you go and do the demonstration since you know the system? I did that. I said, wow, I like that far more than writing code. I mean, that's what was the turning point for me to go from being an engineer to moving in sales and marketing. So I called IBM's office. This was in Cincinnati, Ohio, where I came. And that's how I moved into sales and marketing, then moved in that world. And then I got into the startup world by accident. This was 96 timeframe. Internet was beginning to happen. Companies are creating worldwide web pages. And I was reading about Netscape. This company had just gone public, Mozilla browser. It was a fascinating story. And I said, wow, if internet really takes off, life will be amazingly wonderful. Finding information should be so easy. But if every company connects to this highway of internet, cyber should become a big problem because bad guys can also access that information. So then I said, wow, if this young kid from UIUC, Mark Andreessen, could do a startup, why shouldn't I try a startup? And my wife, she's also a computer professional. And she and I would talk. She said, come on. I mean, you're crazy. And the more I read about it, the more I got fascinated by all this. Then I said, I'm going to try. I was in Atlanta. I put a business plan in place to create a security services company, internet security. Atlanta wasn't the best place for fundraising, especially at that time. They all said, what startups have you done before? So my wife and I talked. I said, well, the only way to realize this dream is to put our life savings on the line. And she said, But then she supported it. The notion was, if it works, it's wonderful. If it doesn't, yeah, we'll lose our life savings, but we can always find a job. That was the notion. And perhaps I came from a very simple background. There was no attachment for money. Okay. That probably helped me overall. And so with that, I started the company. The business took off. I had strong sales and marketing background, and I had my wife say, why don't you quit too? The notion was you burn the bridges behind, so there's no turning back. And it was great. The startup happened, this company in Mountain View, VeriSign at that time, they came and acquired us. And the stock went through the roof. It was crazy. We did a deal at $26 a share. When I left after 18 months, it was $256 after 2 splits. Okay. So it was an amazing story in Atlanta. 70 or 80 employees are millionaires. And it was, wow, startups are supposed to be hard. This was easy. It must be a fluke. Okay. So let's do it again. And this time, I didn't need to go to any VCs. So we said we're going to fund it, and we said we can only put so much money in one company. Let's do multiple, but let's do like having kids. You stagger them 1 or 2 years apart. And my wife joined me for all these. So we did together. And so this was an e-procurement company using Ariba software, an email security company called CipherTrust, and wireless security company called AirDefense, defending your airwaves. It was hard, okay. I mean, I was thinking that I do one, then put a team in place, go to the other one. It's like you spend most time with the youngest kid. As they grow, you spend less time with them.
Believe me, I know that. Yeah.
It wasn't quite that simple. But good luck, good teams, great timing. They all became very successful and eventually got acquired by large companies. So this is what brought me to Zscaler. I'm sitting in 2007, 2008. I had no desire to do one more startup and flip it. I'd done it enough. Now I want to do something big, something lasting. So I was thinking, what could be the big thing for the next 20 years? Okay. So if you look at 2007-8 timeframe, I have been using Salesforce since year 2001 for all of my startups when they were under $10 million in annual sales. And I loved Salesforce. I loved NetSuite, those 2 SaaS companies. So I was a big believer that all applications will move to SaaS. AWS was just born. And Apple had just announced iPhone with a big screen. And to me, it seemed natural that all new technologies start as kind of cottage industry. Almost like power generators early on. You know, we all used to buy and manage our power generators. And then the industry moved on. Power utilities came. They kind of said, plug it into the wall socket and get your power. It's a power utility. Computing should be utility too. Security should be utility too. So that's the notion that actually took me to start this big thing. It was pretty early on. But I had conviction. We did fair amount of evangelism early on. I would go and talk to some of these customers. First, I went to talk to technical people who are managing firewalls and all that stuff. And they would look at me. It's like, get lost. Then I realized that I'm talking to the wrong people. I should talk to senior levels, head of security, who really want to save money, better security, who are not hung up on having boxes. Because the people who love boxes, we call them box huggers. Okay, they're the wrong people to sell to. And early on, if I talk to 10 CISOs, head of securities, 6 will say, you're crazy. 3 will say, a great idea, but not for me. And one will say, what an exciting idea. Let's work together. That's all. I needed only 1 out of 10. I couldn't serve any more customers. So that's how this thing took off. Today, we're a public company, over $1.6 billion in ARR. Our component average growth has been in the 60, 70% year over year for the last 6, 7 years. It's a fun journey.
So if people are sitting out here and they're saying, okay, so you go see 10, 6 tell you to get lost, 3 are, neither here nor there, but 1 says this is interesting. How do you pick the 1? How do you know? Or you just got to make 10 pitches and it self-organizes?
Right. So when you go with new technology, you need to find customers who are forward thinkers, who are progressive. Okay. So you don't exactly know, but there are some data points. You can figure out customers who are embracing newer technologies. For example, a customer who are embracing cloud. They're forward thinkers. I would rather go and talk to them rather than people who are only in the data center. So, and that's where you go from.
Can't you just go to a parking lot as the CEO and the CTO is driving a Tesla? We should go for that company. It's not that simple.
Not that simple. A Tesla and CTO, yeah.
So you have sold 2 companies and you've taken
Actually, 4.
4. Okay.
And took 1 public.
Okay. So I am very curious because, I meet many entrepreneurs. And one of the slides I hate in all their pitches, which is, I don't even know why they put this slide in. And they put a slide in about, exit strategy. And they say, well, we're either going to go public, be acquired. They forget to say we could die, but yeah.
Absolutely.
And then they say we're going to be acquired as if, well, we could go public or we could get acquired.
Right.
What do you think we should do, honey? And in their minds, I think that they can call up somebody at Goldman Sachs and say, hey, call up Oracle, tell them to buy us. So I want to know, are companies bought or sold?
So the answer is good companies are not sold. They're bought.
They're bought.
Poor companies are sold, and they're sold on a fire sale, right?
So if you have a good company and it's bought, basically you just have to pick up the phone or answer the email?
No. It's almost like dating a little bit. You kind of say, no, I'm not even interested. and you can only say that if you are strong. If you're desperate, you can't say that. So rather than focusing on selling, you should focus on building a strong business. If you're strong, you're not desperate, then companies come to you and they want to buy you and you say no. Okay. And they can smell if you're desperate or not.
Okay.
Right?
From now on, when somebody asks me to speak, I'm going to always say no. Okay. So now, you've been acquired 4 times. You're public now.
Right.
Like, what's the pluses and minuses about being acquired versus being a publicly traded CEO?
I'm having a lot more fun being a public company CEO than getting acquired. I mean, look at the track record of acquisitions. I think 80%, I'm making up this number, but I think it's pretty close. 80% of acquired companies get killed and smothered by acquiring companies. It's unfortunate.
Wait, is that clock right? Did we use up 35 minutes already?
It has not been moving. It's sitting at 0. Okay.
So how long have we been on?
I don't know.
How much time was it?
Maybe
14 minutes.
They can turn it on now.
Yeah, you got to look at the right clock. Okay, sorry to interrupt you.
Okay, it's nice. Okay.
Okay, continue on about being a publicly traded, wonderful CEO.
So acquisitions, often the acquired companies, they try to take over and tell the acquiring company what to do. They don't realize that they're buying because they couldn't do it themselves. So they really need to give freedom, a little bit independence. But sometimes in large companies, some of these large, big executives, they think that the power means having more and more people and groups under them. So it needs to be done right. Some of the companies I sold, they were okay for a while. Others are really not good to start with because the vultures come in, they want to take over a piece of your this function and this function and this function, which is horrible because they pay money and then they kill the company. Not always, about 80% of the time. I think public companies, it can be hard, but look, I have not been doing differently running a public company. We always run with focus on customers, just go and sell, and be prudent in doing the right investments. When you start funding a company yourself, the discipline and culture is very different than when you get $100 million from a VC. Then you start getting all these corner offices and all that silly stuff out there. But I think it's fun. In the public company, your brand, your access to customers becomes a lot better. And people talk about investors and all that kind of stuff. I tell my investors, you are a lower priority. My customers are a higher priority. I mean, that's what I do, right? And if we are obsessed with customers, things happen, and that's what we do.
Well, you know, in a sense, I created a false dichotomy because I said for you to contrast acquired versus public. But another dichotomy is public versus private. So you're not acquired, you're private.
Right.
What's the plus minus between private versus public?
Right. So often you would say a private company has more freedom to invest however they need to invest.
Yeah.
Public companies need to worry about their bottom line, top line. But private companies often have limited funding. The funds are limited. I mean, if you go and raise lots of funds, you're giving away your company to some of those investors too early, too quickly. So it is true that private companies do not have the pressure, okay? But a real entrepreneur should have the pressure whether you're public or private. I have always felt that I need to excel. I mean, think of when you're competing on the world stage, you could be playing in a regional league, your baseball league, or you could be playing on the world stage. There's a lot more pressure on the world stage, but there's more fun, there's more excitement to be there. I mean, we are out there, we want to compete, we want to win, we want to change the world.
Okay. So, you know, you've been successful in all these companies. Can you just give us some hindsights about, you know, how does someone who's a young person who's trying to be an entrepreneur, how do you learn to be an entrepreneur?
So look, I had no background of entrepreneurship because my family was small-scale farmers, okay? I learned everything, right, along the way. I think probably had I not moved to IBM for my sales and marketing,
yeah.
I probably may not have done startups. That took me from just being an engineer to a business person. So if you want to do a startup, I think it's good to be well-rounded. That doesn't mean that you need to move from engineering to marketing or sales. Then you need to find a partner who actually has that side of it together. In my case, I could do these startups on my own because I had the technical side, I had the business side of it. Having two together is actually easier, okay? And then I think many people try to do startup to get rich quick. I think that's a problem. Startups generally take a long time, okay? And if you really have passion and drive, you want to make things happen, then it's a fun. If you're kind of saying, wow, man, it's so hard, then it's not going to work well. Then you're going to do that fire sale.
Could you quantify when you say long time? What is long time in numbers?
So take public companies. On average, it takes 10 years for a company to go public. In fact, we from startup to public were about 10 years. But you build, you take it out there. I mean, I think you need to, I look at startups, kind of, it's a journey. We're taking to the next level. My wife and I kid. So she has been with me for every company for the first 2, 3, 4 years. Zscaler, she was been 4 years. Then she said, move on.
We should have had your wife on stage.
Right. So the fun is, so she said, okay, how long are you going to do this company? We said, okay, well, we want a market cap of $1 billion because we haven't done that. That was a fun target. When we got there, we said, no, it needs to be 10, but okay.
Where are you going to stop?
Right, exactly. It's fun. It's nice to be able to dream and imagine and then make these things real. Now, all that stuff requires, the most important things you need is a strong team. We all have only 24 hours in a day. So hiring a great team and be aligned with them is probably, then it becomes fun.
Okay, so since you opened this door, how do you find great team members? How do you tell the bullshitters from the real people?
That's the hardest thing. There are lots and lots of people who talk, but few people are really into it. You just meet. I meet people every weekend. One of the things we have in our company is, if you find someone who walks on water, who's passionate, we have a rack for them. We'll open a rack, we'll hire them, we'll make room for them. But there aren't that many people. But keeping the culture, if you start finding those great people, then they find great people and great people. But there are no shortcuts. There's no easy way to find people who really, yeah.
So being in Silicon Valley and being in all these companies and going to all these conferences, there are many, many sessions kind of like this where you bring an entrepreneur, you bring venture capitalists, and they talk about, what's your best advice for entrepreneurs and all that, right? Pivot, failure is okay, whatever you hear, right?
Right.
So I want to know, what typical advice do entrepreneurs hear that you think is total bullshit?
So the first is the point you raised. My exit strategy. There you start. What exit strategy? You don't even know where things are headed. Now, it's true that for to be a public company, you need to look at a hard, long problem to solve. If you're building a feature, there's no chance of being public. That feature will get sold. But outside that, doing a upfront exit is kind of is crazy, right? I think there's a lot of academic advice that comes, but the biggest thing I would say, there are no shortcuts. There is no such thing as free lunch. If you are doing something, do it where your passion is, which you really enjoy doing, because there will be tough times. And then you need to really, if you're passionate, you keep on driving. I mean, look at Zscaler. I mean, we were trying to change the way networking and security is done. It has been done the same way for 30 years. When we would hit some hard time, my leaders will say, man, such a compelling story. The CIO or CISO is not buying it. It's hard. How do you change their minds? Okay. It's a tough area. And I would say, look, what we are doing is nothing as compared to what Elon Musk had to do. He took on the whole auto industry and changed the whole thing. That's far, far harder than what we're doing. It's always relative, right? It's a state of mind. But then you get some good hits too. Early on, we got some very large customers. They're challenging. Then you look at those successes and say, wow, those are wonderful. We can do it. And if you have people with you who are willing, want to take a challenge, life is about, you could look and say, this is a challenge. Or you could say, man, this is so hard. That's the difference, I think.
You also opened the door for this question, okay? So I'm just really curious. Do you still use Elon Musk as an example? Don't you think that's a fair question?
It is a
Personally,
fair
I think
question.
he lost his mind, but okay, so.
Right. It is true. So now I more
It's true
often.
that he lost his mind?
No. Now I more often use Tesla rather than the person. Electric cars. I mean, they're actually that's the best way I describe Zscaler versus the old school security companies. Traditional car versus electric car.
Well, I mean, to be fair to Elon, I think I was a Mercedes brand ambassador, during those years. I personally think he single-handedly made the auto industry
Absolutely.
go electric by
He did.
himself.
That's why I'm saying,
Yeah.
look and say he changed the whole thing. Yeah, very impressive.
It's also a lesson, and you should quit while you're ahead. But okay. So I am very curious. There is this line of thought that, why are we requiring everybody to have college degrees to work in these companies? We should train them for more realistic things. They don't need to sacrifice 4 years of their life, blah, 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 right? So how do you feel about the necessity of a college degree in a tech company?
I don't think a college degree is needed at all. My third startup, AirDefense, the guy who started that with me had done 1 year of college and dropped out. Okay, it's very good. He had a passion. This was about monitoring the airwaves from Wi-Fi and all that kind of stuff. This guy, young. In fact, I met him in Dallas. Thing I liked him. I had him fly to Atlanta. That's where headquarters was, my previous companies, and I realized he couldn't rent a car. Okay.
Why?
He wasn't old enough. Okay. But he was great. I mean, he was the brains behind building air defense technology, and air defense did very, very well. So I don't really care about degrees. For technical interviews, we actually do our own thorough interviews. I do think this whole degree thing is like inertia. Inertia is such a powerful thing. We keep on doing what we're doing. The biggest thing I tell my customers, CIOs and CISOs, is this inertia is holding you back, and you keep on buying this old stuff. Come on, it's your job to really change. Do you change agents, right? The college degrees, I think it's a lot of wasted money and time.
Okay, now you say that now, but back then, when you were in India,
Right.
Didn't the fact that you went to IIT open
Yes.
everything up for you?
That was then. Now it's a very different world. Very different world altogether.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay, so next management topic is remote work.
Yep.
What do you think about remote work?
I think it's good. It opens up places where you can hire. Now, there's a downside to it. It's not always the human connections, bonding, all that stuff. You do miss out. For example, when our engineers went home during COVID, for the first year or so, all the projects are figured out. They were actually developing and coding faster at home with fewer distractions than did in the office. But the new projects, all the whiteboarding, figuring out the new ideas, that's what we miss. So we do actually hybrid, where we ask our employees to come to the office 2 days out of 5 days a week.
Okay.
Yeah.
And my last question, we have 28 seconds. So, ChatGPT impact upon a firm like yours?
I think it's not only on a firm like us, it's on the entire world. It will make a huge, huge difference, because information is becoming available on your fingertips very easily. Now, the problem is, just like any technology, it's wonderful, but it can also be used as a dangerous tool, just like a knife, kitchen knife, good on one side, bad on the other side. So we got our work cut out for us to make sure that bad guys are leveraging ChatGPT kind of technologies. How do we protect enterprises to stay a few steps ahead of bad guys?
And how, for example, is ChatGPT used inside Zscaler?
Oh, lots of stuff. So we have tons of data about customer communication. So being able to apply ChatGPT or AI/ML at large to figure out who is trying to do reconnaissance for customer A or B, because all breaches start with reconnaissance. Okay, and if you can really analyze all of that stuff, you could predict which customer is likely to get breached, so you could work with them to stop some of those open areas and open holes to protect them.
ChatGPT can do that?
Yeah, it's an AI/ML engine. You train, you feed information, it lets you sift through lots of information and give you meaningful information a lot more quickly.
Okay.
Yes.
Well, we are out of time. I don't know how I could get any more out of him in 35 minutes than I did. Please join me in thanking Jay.
Right. Thank you so much.
And thank
Yeah.
So thank you very much for attending. And now we eat, right?
We eat.
Thank you
Thank
very
you
much
so
for
much.
attending.
Great.